In the sterile, climate-controlled corridors of power in Washington and Paris, they whisper his name with a mixture of confusion and contempt. But on the dusty, sun-scorched streets of Ouagadougou, Niamey, and Bamako, they chant it like a prayer. A name that has come to represent a defiant new dawn for millions and a terrifying new reality for the old world order. That name is Ibrahim Traore. He is the 36-year-old army captain who doesn't carry himself like a president, yet has become the most consequential leader on the African continent. He is the man who has done the unthinkable. He has looked the world's superpowers in the eye and told them their time is up. This is a story that is being written in real time, a revolution unfolding before our very eyes. It's a story of courage, betrayal, and the unquenchable thirst for true independence. To make sure you don't miss a single chapter of this incredible saga, take a moment right now to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up if you believe in the power of a people's revolution, and drop a comment below with your thoughts. Your engagement helps us push these important stories out to the world. Now, let's get into it. A revolutionary wind is sweeping across the Sahel, that vast expanse of Africa that has for too long been a playground for foreign interests and a graveyard for its people's hopes. Between 2020 and 2023, the governments of Mali, Guinea, Niger, and Burkina Faso were toppled by men in uniform, tired of the corruption, the insecurity, and the hollow promises of Western-style democracy. At the heart of this storm is Captain Ibrahim Traore. Young, austere, and often seen only in his military fatigues and signature red beret, he has become the living symbol of this new movement. For the youth of Africa, he is more than a leader, he is an idea, but to truly understand Traore, you have to understand the ghost that haunts Burkina Faso. The ghost of a man whose name is still spoken with reverence a generation after his death, Thomas Sankara. Africa's Che Guevara. The upright man who, in 4 short years, set his nation on a path of radical self-reliance, only to be cut down in a hail of bullets, allegedly by his best friend with the backing of foreign powers. Sankara's assassination didn't just kill a man, it killed a dream. A dream that many believed was buried forever. Until now, from the moment he seized power, Traore began speaking a language that hadn't been heard in the presidential palace for over 30 years. He spoke of imperialism, of self-determination, and of a nation's right to control its own resources. He kicked out the French ambassador, terminated the long-standing military agreement with Paris, and declared that his country's gold belonged to its people. Each move was a direct echo of Sankara's defiance, a clear signal that the days of subservience were over. In the West, they called it a reckless provocation. But for the people of Burkina Faso, it was the sound of shackles breaking. The question that hangs heavy in the Sahelian air, the question that keeps generals in the Pentagon and diplomats on the Quai d'Orsay awake at night, is this: is Ibrahim Traore the second coming of Thomas Sankara, and in a world still rigged against African sovereignty, can he possibly succeed where his predecessor so tragically failed? To understand the fire that rages in Burkina Faso today, you must first understand the decades of dry tinder left behind by a history of profound betrayal. It's a story that begins, as so many African tragedies do, with the promise of freedom. The year is 1960. A wave of independence sweeps the continent, and the Republic of Upper Volta is born, free from the shackles of French colonial rule. The people danced in the streets, believing their destiny was finally their own. But the celebration was short-lived. The French may have lowered their flag, but their influence remained, a cancer of neocolonialism that ensured the nation's wealth continued to flow north, while its people remained poor. The first presidents were little more than puppets, their strings pulled from Paris, happy to manage the poverty of their people in exchange for personal riches. Then, out of this despair, a lightning bolt struck. His name was Thomas Sankara. A charismatic, brilliant, and fiercely incorruptible army captain who seized power in 1983 and dared to dream of a different future. He cast off the colonial slave name Upper Volta and rechristened his nation Burkina Faso, the land of upright people. And for 4 glorious years, he made it so. Sankara declared war not on neighboring countries, but on hunger, disease, and ignorance. He vaccinated millions of children, planted 10 million trees to halt the Sahara's advance, built roads and railways with local labor, and outlawed female genital mutilation and forced marriages, appointing women to high office. He shunned a presidential Mercedes for a simple Renault, lived on a captain's salary, and famously declared, "He who feeds you, controls you." Under Sankara, Burkina Faso began to feed itself, its people began to believe in themselves, and a continent began to watch in awe. But you cannot start a fire like that without attracting the attention of those who profit from the darkness. Sankara's revolution was a direct threat to the powerful, comfortable order of things. His Pan-Africanist, anti-imperialist speeches on the world stage were a slap in the face to foreign powers and their regional allies. And so, the plot was hatched. The weapon of this betrayal was not a foreign assassin, but Sankara's own brother-in-arms. His closest friend, the man he trusted with his life, Blaise Compaoré. On October 15, 1987, in a bloody coup d'etat that sent shockwaves across Africa, Compaoré's soldiers murdered Thomas Sankara and 12 of his aides. The revolution was over. What followed was a long, dark night that lasted 27 years. Compaoré systematically erased Sankara's legacy. He called it the rectification, a cynical undoing of every progressive policy. He reopened the country to the IMF and the World Bank, privatized national assets, and restored the lavish perks for the ruling elite. He grew fantastically wealthy while his people slid back into crushing poverty. It was more than just a reversal of policy, it was the murder of a nation's soul. But while Compaoré could kill the man, he could never kill the idea. For nearly 3 decades, the memory of Sankara was kept alive in whispers, in secret, a revolutionary ghost waiting for a new body. This deep, festering wound of betrayal is the reason the people of Burkina Faso are so ready for another revolution. It is the fuel for the fire that Captain Ibrahim Traoré has now unleashed upon the world. While the ghost of Sankara haunted the memory of a nation, a new generation was being forged in the crucible of war. While the political elite in Ouagadougou, remnants of Compaoré's corrupt regime and the weak democratic governments that followed, grew fat on foreign aid and played power games, young men were dying in the desolate northern deserts. They were fighting a vicious insurgency with little more than courage, their lives thrown away by generals and air-conditioned officers who saw them as expendable. One of these young men was Ibrahim Traoré. He wasn't born in a palace, he was born in a village. His character wasn't shaped in a Parisian university, it was hardened on the battlefield. Traoré enlisted in 2009, just as the country began to truly unravel. He rose through the ranks, not through political connection, but through competence and bravery. He served in the army's most dangerous postings, saw action in the UN peacekeeping mission in Mali, and witnessed firsthand the heavy price of his government's failures. He saw his brothers-in-arms sent into battle with inadequate weapons and flimsy logistical support. He saw them die for a state that seemed to care little for their sacrifice. This wasn't politics for him, it was personal. A slow-burning rage began to build within him, a rage shared by a cohort of young, frontline officers who felt utterly betrayed. By January 2022, the country could take no more. The democratically elected president, Roch Kabore, was powerless as jihadist massacres became a daily reality. The people were screaming for change. A coup, led by Lieutenant Colonel Paul-Henri Damiba, swept Kabore from power. Traoré and his comrades supported it, believing it was the only way to save the nation from collapse. But their hope quickly turned to ash. Damiba, once he tasted power, began to look and sound just like the politicians he had replaced. He made grand speeches, sought international approval, and seemed to be diverting from the core mission, winning the war. To Traoré, sent back to command an artillery regiment in the hotspot of Kaya, it was a sickeningly familiar betrayal. The revolution had been hijacked before it had even begun. The final straw came in September 2022. A convoy of supplies, desperately needed by a besieged town, was ambushed. Dozens of civilians and soldiers were slaughtered. The tragedy exposed the catastrophic failure of Damiba's strategy. For Traoré and his men, the time for waiting was over. On September 30th, in a swift and decisive move, Captain Ibrahim Traoré launched Burkina Faso's second coup in 8 months. This wasn't a general's coup for power and prestige. It was a captain's coup, a frontline soldier's coup, carried out by men who were tired of dying for nothing. When Traoré appeared on television, he was still a captain. In the days that followed, he refused a promotion to general and reportedly turned down his presidential salary. The message was electrifyingly clear. He was not here to enrich himself. He was here to finish the fight. The land of upright people had finally found a soldier worthy of its name. If the world thought Captain Traoré's coup was just another changing of the guard, they were gravely mistaken. This was not a grab for power, it was a declaration of war on the entire system that had kept his country on its knees. With the speed and precision of a military operation, Traoré began to systematically dismantle the pillars of neocolonial rule, and in doing so, started forging a new path not just for Burkina Faso, but for the entire continent. His first target was the most obvious symbol of foreign domination. In January 2023, his government formally requested the immediate departure of all French troops from Burkinabe soil. For years, these forces had operated under the guise of fighting terror, yet the terror only worsened. To Traoré, they were not saviors, they were occupiers. The French ambassador was expelled. French-backed media outlets, long accused of pushing a biased narrative, were suspended. The message to Paris was brutal and unambiguous: the master's house is no longer yours. Next, he went for the money. For decades, Burkina Faso's immense gold wealth was being plundered, spirited away to foreign vaults while its people starved. Traoré moved to stop the bleeding. In a move that sent shockwaves through the global mining industry, he suspended the export permits for small-scale gold miners to crush smuggling and announced the construction of the nation's first state-run gold refinery. The goal was simple and revolutionary: Burkinabe gold would now be refined on Burkinabe soil, its value finally serving the Burkinabe people. This was not just economic policy, it was a profound act of liberation, an assertion of sovereignty over the very earth beneath their feet. But Traoré knew that one nation cannot stand alone against the world. He needed allies, not the fickle, conditional partnerships offered by the West, but a true brotherhood forged in a shared struggle. He found it with his neighbors. Alongside the military leaders of Mali and Niger, who had undergone similar revolutions, he created the Alliance of Sahel states. This was no mere paper pact, it was a mutual defense treaty, a declaration that an attack on one is an attack on all. It was a direct challenge to Western-backed regional bodies like ECOWAS, which had become tools to punish defiant states. By withdrawing from these old structures and creating their own, they were redrawing the map of West Africa, creating a new bloc of sovereign, unapologetically nationalist states. And as he turned away from the West, he opened the door to new partners like Russia, seeking cooperation based on mutual respect, not domination. So, is Ibrahim Traoré the man America, and indeed the entire Western world, fears the most? The fear is not of the man himself, the quiet captain in the red beret. The fear is of the idea he represents. The idea that a nation, no matter how small or poor, can stand up and reclaim its destiny. He has shown that the chains of neocolonialism can be broken, that a people can reject foreign aid in favor of self-respect, and that a new generation of African leaders is no longer willing to beg for a seat at a table they should rightfully own. The path he has chosen is perilous, fraught with the danger of assassination and foreign sabotage. But for the first time in a long time, the people of Burkina Faso are not just hoping for a better future, they are building it themselves. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey. The story of this revolution is far from over, and we will be here to cover every development. If you believe these stories need to be told, please help us by hitting that like button, share this video with your friends and family, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And most importantly, make sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on so you don't miss what comes next. Until next time, stay engaged.